Oh, someone wanted me to do this before I started the video. While we have the headliner out, we're taking the extra time to put back all the clips that help retain it. So we have to glue a bunch of it. This one's okay. And we're also adding additional magnets. Now there's a magnet over there on the driver's side. And you see we've added two because there's no grab handle to help hold the headliner in place. So we're adding on these and we're re-gluing as well because this piece of foam is attached to here. If the glue lets go, it's not going to help hold the headliner up. So we're re-gluing all the foam. So we want to reduce any types of creaks and rounds because if this material is rubbing on this material when we're driving, you can hear some things. So we're taking the extra time to beef it up just a bit. And this is what luxury cars do. They take the extra time to put on extra materials. They put better materials in. So as a compromise, we're just going to re-glue everything. So because our pickup never had the overhead console, which has our dome light and our garage door opener, we have to make cuts. So smaller cuts are better than bigger cuts because we can always make it bigger. Now, if you are not reupholstering the headliner like I am, you have to be very careful here. So the best way to cut it that I find is take an Olfa knife blade and heat it up. You will ruin the blade, but as you cut through, the material on the other side will cut nice and clean. So you can see this, that first cut there is made pretty clean, then we have another incision over there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a small cut. We've already measured everything. We're going to test fit it and make sure that everything lines up for our clips. If it doesn't, we can go ahead and keep cutting more. But if we've cut too much, you're not going to be able to cover it. Even though we're going to reupholster it, it's going to be loose afterwards. So take your time here, guys. So since we have the headliner out, I'm pushing up so that way the material will tear up. If I push down, the glue could let go and start pulling at our material. So we can go ahead and just lightly push it up. We might have to make a few more cuts to help this out. You see right here it's sticking a bit, so I have to take a knife to that area right there. So this is the difficult part about doing this. You have to bring it back in and double check your cuts. So we're actually looking good here for the fastener, but the clips were still being covered. So we have to cut back another inch, but I'd rather do this than cut too far. Then you have to try to put material back to give it strength again. So we're gonna come back an inch because we can see that our clip are way back here, but when we look at parallel, we can't see it. So we just have to remove a little bit more material, but we're almost there. For those of you that are trying to add the overhead console, you're gonna try to find the clip over here. Now I've been on GM Parts Direct. I've scoured the internet trying to find a part number. I can't find the metal clip that snaps into here. So as an alternative, you can get these clips over here that have threads, and we use these typically in speaker installs. It's like a body mount clip on the older GMs from the 90s, but much smaller. And I've already test fitted, it works. So you have to get the long version because you need to have a little bit of material bite onto the metal here, and then the thread ends up in the middle. There's shorter versions of these. The problem if you use that, when you try to hold it in place, there's no excess for it to grab onto. So you see over here, this is the center where the threads are. So when I put this on here, it holds in place. Now, I've test fit, it works good. So now that I know that that works, I just go ahead and put a little bit of sound deadening over it to hold it in place, and then use a pick to make the hole again so then my screw can go through. So now I know where my hole's going to be. Take your roller, work the material on. This will do two things. It will hold that clip in place, so then when you go ahead and put your overhead console, you know it's going to be where it needs to be. It's not going to shift around on you because it isn't the proper part technically. And also when everything's tucked up, the sound deadening is going to deaden any kind of noises. We're trying to minimize any noises in the roof liner because I really don't want to go in here ever again. So before we glue this on, we want to pre-cut it so it's a little bit easier to work with, and we want to make sure we have the right orientation. So it looked wide enough, but the first thing I'm doing is I'm moving it and I'm pushing it into all the crevices. That way the material moves towards the center. That way I know if I have enough on the edge, because we had some stuff, we had material that was over because we want to wrap it around like this. But if it's too narrow, it can go in like this and then you run out. So it's always a good idea that we just kind of just push it around, make sure that it looks good. This is the downside I don't like about Suede, because you know, if you go one way, it can look like the other. As long as no one touches the headliner, you're fine. But this is looking really nice right now. Okay, so we have gone ahead and sprayed our whole headliner. Now we do use an industrial-based adhesive. Technically, you can't buy this if you're from the public, so we actually get it from one of our distributors. And what the cool thing about this is from Wellwood. The cool thing about this stuff is you can actually let it dry, and the reason why I advise you let it dry is because you want it to off gas. Now, the material we're working with seems to be breathable, but let's say we were doing a vinyl, if you're wrapping some other kind of panel, vinyl doesn't breathe. So if it off gases, the material will actually want to separate. So usually what I do with this stuff is I'll spray it, I'll get even coverage, and I'll come back in the morning. That way I can see if it soaks, because this particular headliner, it's soaking in. And if you guys are wondering why I didn't remove the original material, it was glued on pretty strong, and it would be a lot of work, and we'd probably remove a lot of foam, and we'd get a lot of unevenness. So because it wasn't lifting off, we sprayed it with this stuff. It's soaking in to help it adhere to the other side. And then we're going to spray the Suede tomorrow, and then we're going to let that dry a bit. Then we can reheat this with a heat gun just to help it reactivate. And then probably about 2 or 3 of us will start laying this out. The hardest part about this will be these complex contours over here. That's where we're going to want to bunch up and everything. So it helps having several people to help you lay this out. What we're doing here is I glued it last night and I let it air it out, and I glued the top layer already, but I let it dry again, and we're letting it just be mildly tacky. And the nice thing about this Wellwood stuff is it won't reactivate till I add heat to it, so it gives us lots of time to peel it back, rework it in, because you have to start from the middle, work these contours. So here it's lifting a bit, so I got to lift it up again, try to get it to go over all the contours, and then when I reheat that I can work it in. I want to minimize stretching. This isn't a very stretchy material, and if you do stretch it over time, it's going to want to pull off the Suede's going to want to pull off the headliner. So if you can lay it on and it lays on nice and smooth and follows the contours, it's just going to stay like that for a very long time. Looking really good. So what we did after we laid it out, you have to start from the middle, work all the contours, and let it set in, and it's kind of tacky. And then I hit again with the heat gun, and it reactivates the adhesive, and then it really bonds together. Another thing that we did was we lined the whole perimeter with Gorilla Tape, and the main part was in the front, because what I'm afraid of is if it ever goes to a glass shop, because from factory the headliner was kind of glued from the windshield caulking. So with the Gorilla Tape here, what I'm hoping is if someone over glues it, it'll stick to the Gorilla Tape and it's a little more smooth. It's less likely to bond, because on the inside the headliner is pretty porous, same with the material itself. So if it bonds to that, you're kind of done. If you ever had to move the headliner or just pull it down, you want to run some wire in here. So the Gorilla Tape serves that purpose, as well as by doing the whole perimeter. With the glue, we glued both sides to help it bond, and it's also going to help reinforce this just a bit. Like, the headliners don't really suffer from much abuse because you never touch them. Well, you shouldn't be, but if we can reinforce anything and help it stick better over time, we're going to go ahead and do that. Another note, to make things easier, we have removed the door skin on here, because on these GMT 800 platforms, they don't swing open. The new body style, the 2007 and a half and up to 2013, this suicide door opens up all the way near the bed, so that gives you a lot more clearance to do this. So to give ourselves a couple extra inches, I remove the door skin. It gives me the opportunity to go inside and inspect everything, see how everything is, add some more sound deadening if I choose to, and then we can go ahead and throw this in here. Door skin off, I'm going to go ahead and add more film to it. So we have our fastening over here. I mount it sometimes over to the door to help funnel it in. You always have to always mount it to the door itself. You can see over here, so any type of ambient noise coming to the cab, I'm trying to capture it in the door skin to quiet down the cab some more. So I'm not sure if you guys could tell in the video, but the way we got this in, you kind of come in at a 45-degree angle, get all the way back there, and then you rotate it inside the cab, and then you can get it in. So you can actually remove it the same way. We tried taking out the way the first time and we folded it. Putting it back in, obviously you don't want to fold it, and we realized like, oh, you can rotate it. So you guys can learn from our mistakes that you can just rotate this out here. So we have the mirror all the way up. You could remove it, but we should be able to just get it up there. So we're going to start with these push pins, pushing them into the holes. We've already pushed them out, and then we can go ahead and put the rest in. So it does work well when you have the little chrome accents of the Escalade gauge bezel in there. So it flows nicer. I like having a darker color up here. At the very least, it just draws a lot less attention to itself, and it's going to go well with the dark grays and everything that we have on the dash. We are going to get some rough country seat covers that are going to be black. And we're going to be changing out this jump seat as well from a late 2007 to 2013 Silverado. Because I want to have the triple cup holders up here and the dual storage. So we're going to slowly change over our color scheme to blacks inside, just so it looks a little more modern. Doesn't show dirt as much, and I like having black trim inside the truck, especially because we have a lot of black accents outside of the truck. I figure I'd show you guys what the LED looks like. And then we have the other one over here that flashes in the dash. So what I like about it on the dash is when you walk towards the truck, it's highly visible, you can see it. And as you walk towards the sides of the truck, or even the back in some angles, you can see this clearly. And for a seasoned thief, if someone sees someone that has taken the time to put this much effort into their LEDs, the theory is, how much effort did they actually put into the security system, the actual security system? So what this is just another deterrent to show them, like, hey, not only do I have a security system, I probably have a very professional installed one that is really hard to get at. They're just going to go to the next vehicle that doesn't have a security system at all. So you guys can see that it's really easy to see it. Now, at the end of the day, if someone wants to smash the window and grab something, like if I left valuables in here, they're going to take it. It doesn't matter how good of a security system I install. But if someone wants to rummage through the vehicle, because usually a lot of thieves like to hit neighborhoods and hit vehicles parked outside, they're probably not going to pick this one because it's probably going to draw attention to them, because it will. So on top of our headliner modifications, we have also redone our switch panel over here. So before, I used to have this, if you guys follow me on Instagram, I used to have this guy for my radar detector. We're allowed to have them here vertically, so this would be rotated this way, and it was actually down here. The reason why it was down there is because I actually put switches here. I put one switch here for my light bar, and I never knew I was going to have this. So this was actually ergonomically in the wrong position. Now, why I'm saying that is when I'd be driving, this would be over here, and I couldn't see the status lights. So I moved it up, so as I'm driving, it works really well with my peripherals. And I also opted for the version that has the red light when it activates. There's you can get it with yellow and blue, I believe, from Escort. There is a different color, and the reason why I really wanted green and red is because my gauge cluster doesn't really use those lights except for the parking braking here. But when I'm driving, it's just typically either white face or blue. So what that means is when I'm driving, these lights are different. It really grabs my attention really well. And then I also opted for this switch over here with an LED light. That way I don't forget if I leave them on for whatever reason. Because if you're driving with your light bar, for whatever, you turn it on and you go into city traffic and there's lots of lights, you might not notice you left it on. And I also have it on ignition, so when I turn it off, everything shuts off, so I don't accidentally drain my battery at night. Well, and there you go, guys. So I do have to come in here with the, I don't know, there is a brush you can use. It's directional, so you set all the one way, and then it has that nice streamlined look to it. So you can see if you just go like this, if I do that across the whole thing, it'll look really nice. I'm really happy how it turned out. Like, we have no crinkles or anything. We just, we have to brush it. I don't know, OCD's kicking in right now. I'm actually okay with this two-tone look. So we grabbed gray pieces. You can see there, that's the tan. I gotta see if I can find some gray handles. It's kind of hard to find. I don't know if they ever had any. Maybe the Denali's had it. I don't mind this. Some people might want to paint this black. You can paint it black if you want. The reason why I don't want to paint it black, though, is if you're touching this all the time, it starts to chip and flake and the paint comes off, then you have to redo it. It's that argument that I make that do I want it to look like a 10 at the beginning and then a few years it looks like a 5 or a 3, or do I just want it to look like an 8 forever? So I'm electing to keep it as an 8, but you guys can do whatever you want. Just, you guys have options. But you can see, like, it does take some time. You have to have lots of patience, and you have to do some refitment whenever you're putting in pieces like this, especially when you're adding in pieces that were never there before. So I did have to recut in here a bit to massage this in, and because of all that other stuff we added, we had to really massage this in. And if you look, it's pushing into the headliner, so it's got like this pressed in kind of look, which is fine. It doesn't look out of place, but these are some of the challenges that you guys are going to come across. So comment below, guys, would you do suede? This is imitation suede. It's not cowhide or anything like that, so no animals got hurt on this one. Or would you pick a different color? Would you do a different material? I found this material relatively easy to work with, and it looks fitting. Like, if you did a whole vinyl roof, that would look kind of weird, and that'd be a lot harder to me. But you guys do whatever you want, but at least you guys can see what's involved.